Hi everyone, I'm Kathryn Nuernberger here to read to you today for the Badmouth reading series. I'd like to thank Rebecca Aronson for inviting me and to all of you for being here in this digital fashion together with me. I'm going to read to you today from my latest book, Rue, which is a book that has a series of poems about plants historically used for birth control as the backbone to the collection, interwoven with more confessional poems, which I'd say are inspired by my pissed off feelings about patriarchal bullshit. Let's start with the title poem, Rue. Rue. Let's try again, he says. I could, but I wear this pressed flower around my neck, as all the girls once wore a charm, and it will not let me any more believe a promise. I could, but the archangel gave Adam yellow blossoms of rue that he might have clear sight, and Eve, merciful midwife that she was, snuck her own bouquet. I could, but it is rue in St. Hildegard's curious book of visions and apocalypses that is the remedy for melancholy. I could, but rue is bitter, hence regret, and rue is the antidote to plague, hence the fair maidens. I could, but the basilisk's breath, which causes plants to wilt and stones to crack, has no effect on rue. But the weasels who hunt the snakes first gorge themselves on rue, the herb of grace, and grave robbers in shackles traded the secret recipe to the vinegar of the four thieves for their freedom. Rosemary, sage, lavender, rue, wormwood, meadowsweet, cloves, campanula roots, 2 ounces of angelica, 3 pints of strong white vinegar, horehound, and large measures of camphor protects the wearer against pestilence and plague. I could, but could you even tell me the name of one such star that constellates the ocean of these endless brown fields? Our Savior rebuked the Pharisees their superstition in paying tithes in rue. The priests used rue to see the witches, and the witches used rue to see the priests. Da Vinci and Michelangelo both took rue to preserve their vision and keep it sharp. I could, but when I wanted to, you were nowhere to be found. I could, but I like you better when I hardly recognize you this way. I could, but for how rue loves the rocky sandy soil, but for how it makes a yellow meadow of this fall-down stone wall. I could, but I don't even think I could. I could, but I don't think I will. I like rue so much it gives me a tickle in my throat. I first became interested in abortifacients, which are plants used for birth control, when I was feeling so isolated in my conservative rural community that I started talking to the plants in the fields behind my house. I won't say too much about talking to them. It was weird. I was sad and lonely. I will also say, though, that I began researching their stories, their botany, their pollinators, their ecosystems, their medicinal uses, as a way to know them better. And I was astonished at how long they'd been evolving with us humans, how many stories and uses they had, and how often their uses included various kinds of healing properties, including but not limited to birth control. It was the sense of knowing them in this full, complex way of being. They were for so many things, not just they had so many more stories, not just one single narrative, and that really resonated with me. It's what I wanted for myself, is to have a multiplicity of narratives inside my life. So, Pennyroyal. Pennyroyal, smallest of the mints, weak with prostate stems. Pennyroyal, a purple button for your pocket. Pennyroyal, called run by the ground. Pennyroyal, called lurk in the ditch. Pennyroyal, it creepeth much and groweth much. It comes into blossom without any setting. Pennyroyal, Pliny couldn't help himself going on at length. Pennyroyal, creeping on my field for years. Pennyroyal, before I knew what an old witch you really are, I brought you home to be a bouquet for my mother. Pennyroyal, drunk with wine for venomous bites, applied to nostrils with vinegar to revive those who faint and swoon. The inside of my body is very dark, I think, or maybe the skin lets a light in, like when I close my eyes in the sun. Pennyroyal to relieve upset stomach. Pennyroyal to reduce flatulence. Pennyroyal, active agent Poulagon, I'll meet you in the centrifuge. Pennyroyal to flavor hog pudding with pepper and honey. Strengthens the gums, helps the gout, cleanses the foul ulcers, drives out the fleas. Pennyroyal for menstrual derangements. Pennyroyal to abort the thing. Pennyroyal to kill the bitch. Pennyroyal to take away the marks of bruises and blows about the eyes. Pennyroyal asked and answered, "By putting flies and bees in warm ashes of pennyroyal, they shall recover life as by the space of an hour and be revived." We're so many versions of ourselves. We try this, we try that. Sometimes we're efficacious. Sometimes we don't know what we're for. The efficaciousness of plants used for birth control is very up in the air. A lot of the most ancient teachings, wisdom, knowledge about how to use them was passed on through oral traditions that were snuffed out, perhaps with the witch trials, perhaps with later persecutions of women healers. I will tell you, pennyroyal can easily kill you. I cannot recommend using it for birth control. Not a great plan. Queen Anne's Lace, another poem in this book, is about that plant. It seems like it might work as birth control, but not reliably. Rue, hard to say how efficacious it is. There aren't very many studies, double-blind or otherwise, into these plants, so a lot of it is anecdotal accounts of how people have used it. Other times there are snippets of information in the old books, but not very much information about dosage, what part of the plant you might use, how you would prepare it. Not to mention what kind of soil qualities around the plant would be necessary to infuse the plant with the kinds of medicinal properties that would make it reliably useful. So safe, legal access to reproductive medicine from our doctors is really what we want. And yes, I am talking with the Supreme Court right now. But I also want to talk to you about silphium, a giant fennel, which by all accounts was reliable, effective, well understood, used widely across the Roman Empire. And yeah, it will probably come as no surprise to you, given the politics of this age and the ones that have come before us, that it is extinct. Regarding silphium, the birth control of the Roman Empire for 600 years, extincted by careless land management in the year 200 AD. When I was just about done being married, and he was a blossomed out nerve of seeing himself through the ugly eyes of how I had come to see him, and myself, for letting our lives get so Tupperware fur molded, for thinking I could lace and pinprick it back with just the right delicacy, when a good punch in the face was what a mess this bad required. I know, you're thinking a punch in the face is never the answer, but that's the lace talking. When I was just about done with the lace-throated maybe violence, our daughter, who was 5, told me how he broke. She didn't say he broke. She said he got really worked up, driving past all the protesters outside Planned Parenthood on Providence Avenue, from which the University Medical School had just withdrawn funding, and also the option for residents to do training there. How he took a hard left into the parking lot and with our daughter by the hand marched in with an urgency that made the young man working the desk say, "Sir?" with some alarm. He took a breath to be more steady and said, "I'm so sorry about all this, all that out there, and I just thought I'd make a donation," as he pulled all the money from his wallet, some of it crumpled, a mixture of 5s and 1s, and pushed it across the counter, our daughter watching and looking around the room, studying the faces of timid and nervous young people, I imagine, in those plastic chairs. I remember from when I once sat in this exact waiting room myself so many years ago, feeling embarrassed and ashamed because it seemed that's what I was supposed to feel. Though if I could have felt my way beyond supposed to back then all the way to my actual self, I would have known I didn't feel sorry at all, only annoyed by the tedium of appointments, the practical necessity of that clean smell, the chilly, dustless air of a building with nothing soft except the aspect of the resident, who was the only doctor I've ever had who joked as she put her gloved hand in my body. "I guess this is the most awkward thing you'll do today, huh?" It was funny and made me feel like we've been friends a long time. My husband, who is still my husband after all, knew that story, and I guess he wanted our daughter to somehow know it too. "Sometimes you'll feel very alone," I tell her on a day when I find her pressing her face against the window, watching the children next door play in the grass, wiping tears from her face as fast as they fall. "Other times, you'll be so wonderfully surprised by the strange bridges people manage to build out to you when you never would have expected they could." I was writing all these poems about birth control, and it seemed a shame to leave out the noble condom, especially once I found out about this plant lamb from, it's not real. I wish it was real. I wish there was a plant lamb in the world. Maybe under the bottom of the sea. They're all down there, right? Anyway, this is my little love poem to condoms, and also my husband, who I'm kind of hard on in this book, but by the end of the book and by the end of this poem, it all really felt like affection and love. Oh, love poems. They're awful. The real thing. Sir John Mandeville, the great explorer and liar, claimed, "There grows a kind of fruit as big as a gourd, and when it is ripe men open it, and find inside an animal of flesh and blood and bone, like a little lamb without wool." He called this the vegetable lamb of Tartary. I first learned of it from a very old hippie who was feeling lonesome one lavender night of a misty joint for the lambskin condoms of his soft-hearted youth, and also most likely for a time when women in their 20s heard such a line with more thrill and less derision, a time when he didn't get on a bicycle and think about his prostate, get on a woman and think about his grave. When Trojan brought them back as a mass-market consumable experiment in nostalgia and the idea of the natural, my husband, who would prefer to have another child, truth be told, bought a box for us to try. After, we assessed. I've had better sex, but there was a sort of hallucinatory flower opening at the end, so that's something. I've been reading about hallucinatory flowers lately, particularly the ones used by medieval midwives to induce abortion. This because I like irony, I like control, and I like to see a woman flipping the patriarchy the bird. In my daily life, though, I stick with condoms, because once the roots are in you, it's no mean feat to get them out. It will feel like and be a measure of poison. I think of the women who once did the washing at the river with a pair of stones in the meat of their arms. I admire, but would not care to be them. When I took the little hormone pills, I always worried I wasn't smelling things. Pheromones of men, lilacs, coffee, puddles around the gas station, as they were meant to be smelled. Meant to be, I'm learning, is a dangerous notion. Goethe said there was meant to be an Erbpflanze, an archetypal plant and prototype containing all plants, past and future. He could draw it, but after many years of travel and searching, had to conclude there is, nevertheless, no such thing. After equally many years, I'm starting to worry that I am missing the point of my life. Was I meant to be the ovary of a green calyx always getting fatter? How will I think when I die? I worry there can be nothing worse than realizing your life wasn't what it was meant to be. The vegetable lamb of Tartary, Mandeville reports, grazed the leaves of its mother until its umbilical vine dropped off, and then it became a lamb, like any other, with meat for slaughter and skin that is said to feel as translucently delicate as a petal. Is a petal meant to chafe? I told my husband sometimes there's great, sometimes there's good enough. He said from his point of view there wasn't really much difference, and what difference there wasn't an improvement so much as a variation. So we went to sleep, content enough, perhaps content as we were meant to be, perhaps just shades of that. Thank you all.